The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of light and darkness. But what happens when something from beyond the stars, something older than the Jedi, older than the Sith, older perhaps than the Force itself, finds its way into this vast galaxy? What happens when an ancient evil, born in a universe of its own making, discovers new souls to corrupt and new worlds to dominate? The answer would be written in the fall of a hero. Ahsoka Tano stood alone on the rain-soaked landing platform of some nameless moon in the Outer Rim, her montrals glistening as water streamed down her orange skin. The freighter that had brought her here was already disappearing into the storm clouds above, its captain eager to be rid of a passenger who carried the stench of Jedi failure. Former Jedi, she corrected herself bitterly. The Council's chambers felt like a lifetime ago, though it had only been weeks since she'd walked away from the Order, from Anakin, from everything she'd known. The Clone Wars raged across 1,000 systems. Good soldiers were dying. Innocent civilians were caught in the crossfire between Republic and Separatist ambitions. And she, trained as a peacekeeper, honed as a warrior, could do nothing but run. The false accusations of terrorism and murder had been cleared, yes, but the damage was done. The Jedi Council had failed her. Master Windu's cold pragmatism, Yoda's distant wisdom, even Anakin's desperate attempts to bring her back, none of it could erase the betrayal she felt. She was adrift, purposeless, alone. That's when she first felt it. A presence in the Force unlike anything she'd ever encountered. Not the serene calm of the light side. Not the passionate fury of the dark. This was something other. Ancient. Patient. It brushed against her consciousness like a whisper in a language she didn't know, but somehow understood. Lost, are you? Cast aside by those who claim to care, asterisk. Ahsoka's hand instinctively moved to her hip, but her lightsabers were gone, surrendered when she left the temple. She reached out with the Force, trying to locate the source of the voice, but found only shadows and rain. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice barely audible over the downpour. Asterisk, a friend. One who knows the pain of betrayal. One who sees your worth when others see only a liability. Asterisk. The voice was warm, almost paternal. It resonated not in her ears, but in her mind, in that hollow space where her connection to the Jedi Order used to be. Ahsoka knew she should leave, should find shelter and dismiss this as exhaustion or paranoia. But something about the voice felt understanding. It knew her pain. "Show yourself," she demanded, backing toward the platform's edge. Asterisk, I cannot. Not yet. I am still forming. But I have watched you, Ahsoka Tano. I have seen your trials. The injustice done to you. The potential wasted by fearful old fools who would rather preserve their dogma than embrace true strength. Asterisk. Lightning split the sky, and in that brief flash of illumination, Ahsoka saw something that made her blood run cold. A shape in the rain, tall, imposing, with eyes that burned like embers in the darkness. But when the lightning faded, there was nothing. Only rain and shadow. "What are you?" she whispered. Asterisk, I am a teacher. A liberator. I am what the Jedi fear to become, power without chains, will without hesitation. In my world, I was known by many names. Here, in this vast and chaotic galaxy, I am simply a guide for those who have been abandoned. Asterisk. Ahsoka's montrals detected movement behind her. She spun, hands raised defensively, but saw only a small hollow projector sitting on the wet durasteel. It hadn't been there moments ago. The device activated on its own, projecting not an image, but a swirling vortex of symbols. Ancient, beautiful, hypnotic. They weren't basic, weren't Orbesh, weren't any language she recognized. Yet, as she stared, meaning formed in her mind. Asterisk power, freedom, justice, revenge, asterisk. I don't want revenge, Ahsoka said, but her voice lacked conviction. Asterisk, don't you? Those who betrayed you still sit in judgment of others. That temple still stands while you wander alone. The war still rages while they debate philosophies. You could end it all, Ahsoka. You could bring true order to this galaxy. Not the Jedi's passive observation. Not the Sith's selfish ambition. real peace, forged by a will strong enough to enforce it. The symbols intensified, and Ahsoka felt something stirring deep within her. Anger she'd suppressed, pain she tried to rationalize away, a burning desire to prove them all wrong. The Jedi who doubted her, the Senate that had nearly executed her, even Anakin, who'd looked at her with pity instead of trust. "No," she said, shaking her head to clear the fog creeping into her thoughts. This is the dark side talking. I won't." The dark side? The voice actually laughed, a sound like distant thunder. Child, I am neither light nor dark. I am beyond such primitive dualities. The Force, you know, is but a shadow of true power. I offer you something your Jedi masters never could, the strength to forge your own destiny, to right the wrongs done to you and countless others. Ahsoka took a step back, and her boot hit the platform's edge. Below, the moon's surface dropped away into mist and darkness. She was trapped between the voice and the void. "Why me?" she asked. "Why not some Sith, if you're offering power?" Because the Sith are fools, just as the Jedi are cowards. They grasp at power for its own sake, burning themselves out in their greed. You Ahsoka Tano are different. You left the Order not out of weakness, but out of principle. You have conviction, loyalty. These are the qualities I seek. These are the foundations upon which true dominion is built. The hollow projector sparked and died, its purpose served. But the presence remained, surrounding her like the rain itself. Ahsoka felt it pressing against her mind, not forcing, but inviting, offering, promising. "I need to think," she said finally. "I need." Time? You have time, young one. I am patient. I have waited ages for one such as you. I can wait a little longer. But know this, the galaxy will not wait. Even now, your former master flies into battle against forces that will destroy him. The Republic crumbles. The Jedi fail. And you stand here, powerless to change any of it. The presence withdrew like a receding tide, leaving Ahsoka gasping on the rain-soaked platform. She fell to her knees, her mind reeling. Part of her knew this was wrong, that accepting help from such a being would lead to darkness. But another part, the part that had been wounded by the Council's betrayal, that had felt utterly helpless in a cell awaiting execution, that part whispered that maybe, just maybe, this voice was right. She didn't know then that the being speaking to her was called Sauron in his own realm. She didn't know that he had corrupted kings and heroes before, that his gifts always came with chains. She knew only that she was alone, and something, had finally offered her the power to matter again. As Ahsoka rose and walked toward shelter, she failed to notice the faint mark that had appeared on her left palm, a circular symbol that would, in time, become her shackle. The corruption had begun. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. 3 days passed before Ahsoka heard the voice again. She had found work on a small trading station orbiting the industrial world of Ord Mantell, doing what she could to survive, loading cargo, repairing droids, keeping her head down. The station was a hub for smugglers, bounty hunters, and those who preferred to avoid Republic or Separatist entanglements. It was the perfect place to disappear. But disappearing, she was learning, meant confronting the silence. Without the Jedi Order's structure, without missions or meditation sessions or Anakin's constant chatter, there was only her own mind. And in that mind, questions festered like wounds. Had she been wrong to leave? Could she have fought harder to reform the Order from within? What was she supposed to do now? Spend the rest of her life running cargo while the galaxy burned? She sat alone in her cramped quarters, staring at her palm. The mark was still there, faint but visible, a circle with strange angular script around its circumference. She tried to wash it off, tried to use Bacta, even considered cauterizing it. Nothing worked. It didn't hurt, didn't impede her movement. But it was there, a constant reminder of that night in the rain. "You have been thinking," the voice said, manifesting suddenly in her mind like an old friend returning from a long journey. Ahsoka didn't flinch this time. She'd been expecting it, if she was honest with herself. I have questions, she said aloud, not caring if anyone in the adjacent quarters heard her talking to empty air. Ask them. I promised you understanding, did I not? What are you? Really? Not the philosophy, not the promises. What are you? A pause. Then, I am what remains of a great power from a realm beyond your own. In my world, I was a craftsman, a teacher, a lord of vast dominion. I sought to bring order to chaos, to unite fractious kingdoms under a single, perfect rule. But I was betrayed, cast down by those who feared what I could build. My physical form was destroyed, and my essence drifted through the void between realities until I found this galaxy, Ahsoka, absorb this. You're not from here, not from any planet in known space. No. I come from a place where power is shaped through will and craft, where great artifacts can bind the destinies of nations. Your force is similar, yet different. It flows through all living things here, while in my realm, power was concentrated, forged, made tangible, And you want to do that here, Ahsoka said quietly. Forge something. Perceptive. Yes. I want to create what I could not complete in my own world, a perfect instrument of order. But I cannot do it alone. I am spirit without substance, will without form. I need an anchor in this reality. I need a champion. Ahsoka stood and paced the small room. And you think I'm that champion? I'm just a failed Padawan. I couldn't even convince my own masters of my innocence. You are far more than that. The voice grew intense, passionate. You possess something rare, genuine conviction paired with formidable skill. You believe in justice, yet you're willing to walk away from institutions that betray it. You're not blinded by dogma like the Jedi, nor consumed by selfish ambition like the Sith. You are exactly what this galaxy needs. What I need, Despite herself, Ahsoka felt a swell of pride. When had anyone last spoken to her like this? Recognized her not as a wayward student or a tragic victim, but as someone with potential? What would you have me do? She asked. Nothing yet. First, I must show you what I can offer. Meet me on Moraband, Ahsoka's blood went cold. Moraband? That's the Sith homeworld. I'm not. It is also a place of great power, where the veil between realities grows thin. There, I can manifest more fully. There, I can show you the truth of what I offer, without the limitations of this distant communication. You need not fear the Sith ghosts that haunt those tombs. They are beneath you. Beneath us, I don't have a ship, Ahsoka said, though part of her wondered why she was making excuses rather than outright refusing. Check your datapad. Ahsoka pulled out her battered device and found a new message waiting. A detailed flight path to Moraband, along with docking codes for a small freighter in Base 7 of the station. The ship's registration showed it had been paid for in full, with her listed as owner and operator. How did you? I may be without form, but I am not without influence. There are those in this galaxy whose minds are malleable. A trader here, a station administrator there. Small manipulations to smooth your path. Consider it a demonstration of what we could accomplish together. Ahsoka sat down heavily on her bunk. This was moving too fast. A week ago, she'd walked away from the Jedi Order. Now she was being offered a ship and invited to the Sith homeworld by a disembodied voice from another reality. Why should I trust you? She asked. You won't even tell me your name. Names have power, young one. In my realm, to know a true name is to hold power over its bearer. But if it would ease your mind, I was called many things. Lord, Deceiver, Dark Lord. But the name I bore with pride was Sauron, the abhorred, the admirable, depending on who spoke it. Sauron, Ahsoka repeated. The word felt heavy on her tongue, laden with something she couldn't quite identify. I do not ask for your trust, Ahsoka Tano. Not yet. I ask only for your curiosity. Come to Moraband. See what I have to show you. If you reject my offer afterward, I will not stop you. You will be free to return to your cargo runs and your isolation. But if you accept, I will give you the power to reshape this galaxy, to end this war, to bring justice to a universe that has known only corruption and conflict. Asterisk. Ahsoka looked at her marked palm again. The symbol seemed to pulse faintly, in rhythm with her heartbeat. She thought of Anakin, probably leading clones into another meat grinder somewhere. She thought of the Jedi Council, debating philosophy while people died. She thought of Barriss Offee, her friend-turned-bomber, driven to terrorism by the very hypocrisy Ahsoka had walked away from. "One meeting," she said finally. "I'll hear you out. But if I don't like what I see, asterisk, then you walk away, and we part as friends who might have been allies. I am a builder, Ahsoka, not a slaver. I offer partnership, not servitude, asterisk." The voice withdrew, leaving her alone with the silence and the weight of her decision. That night, Ahsoka dreamed of a great eye wreathed in flame, watching her from across an infinite distance. But when she woke, she couldn't remember if she'd been terrified or comforted by its gaze. By morning, she'd made her choice. She found the freighter in Base 7, a battered YT 1300 that had seen better decades but was space-worthy. The engines hummed to life at her touch, and the navicomputer already held the coordinates. As Ahsoka guided the ship away from Ord Mantell and into hyperspace, she told herself this was just reconnaissance, just information gathering. She could still turn back, but deep in her soul, in that place where the Force whispered its warnings, she knew the truth. She was already walking down a path from which there might be no return. Moraband loomed before her viewport like a wound in space itself, a dead world of red stone and black sand, where the dark side hung so thick it felt like breathing through cloth. Ahsoka had heard stories of this place from her instructors at the temple. The ancient Sith homeworld, abandoned after millennia of internecine warfare, now home only to tombs and the vengeful spirits of dark lords long dead. The freighter's sensors screamed warnings about atmospheric turbulence and electromagnetic anomalies. Ahsoka ignored them, guiding her ship down through storm clouds that crackled with unnatural lightning. The Force here wasn't just strong, it was oppressive, a weight that pressed against her consciousness like a physical thing. She landed in a valley between massive stone monuments, carved to resemble twisted faces locked in eternal screams. The ship's ramp lowered with a hiss, and Ahsoka stepped out into air that tasted of ash and ancient malice. "I'm here," she said aloud. "Now what?" "Walk toward the Valley of the Dark Lords," Sauron's voice instructed, clearer now than it had ever been. Asterisk, the tomb of Darth Bane. "There, the veil is thinnest. There, I can show myself." Asterisk. Ahsoka's hand instinctively reached for lightsabers she no longer carried. She was unarmed on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy, following instructions from a being she barely understood. The rational part of her mind screamed warnings. The wounded part, the part that still ached from betrayal, pushed her forward. The valley was a necropolis of megalithic proportions. Tombs the size of apartment buildings lined a processional way paved with obsidian. Ancient Sith script covered every surface, speaking of conquests and dark wisdom. Ahsoka's mantras picked up sounds that weren't quite there, whispers, screams, laughter that echoed from nowhere and everywhere. She felt them watching her. The spirits of dead Sith, drawn to the presence of a Force user in their domain. But they didn't attack. They kept their distance, as if something held them at bay. "They fear what you carry," Sauron explained. Asterisk, the mark upon your palm is a ward as much as a bond. Even dead Sith Lords recognize power older than their pathetic philosophies. Asterisk. "What is this mark?" Ahsoka demanded, holding up her hand. The symbol glowed faintly in Moraband's dim light. Asterisk, the beginning of a gift. "But first, you must understand what I intend to create." Asterisk. The tomb of Darth Bane rose before her, a ziggurat of black stone carved with bas-reliefs depicting the Sith Lord's conquest and the establishment of his rule of two. Ahsoka climbed the steps slowly, feeling the dark side grow stronger with each level. By the time she reached the entrance, her skin was crawling and her breath came in short gasps. Inside, the tomb was a vast chamber lit by phosphorescent fungi that grew in patterns along the walls. At the center stood a sarcophagus, cracked and empty. Whatever power Bane had possessed was long gone. But something else was here. The air before the sarcophagus began to shimmer and twist. Ahsoka watched transfixed, as reality bent like heated metal. Light and shadow wove together, and slowly, a figure took shape. Tall, armored in black plate that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A helmet with slits that glowed like coals in a dying fire. And eyes, burning, golden, ancient beyond measure. Sauron stood before her, corporeal for the first time. "This is not my true form," he said, and his voice now came from the armored figure rather than inside her mind. Merely an echo, sustained by the power of this place and the connection we share. But it will suffice for demonstration. Ahsoka took an involuntary step back. The presence radiating from Sauron made even Darth Sidious, whom she'd encountered briefly during the war, feel like a candle compared to a sun. What are you?" she breathed. "I told you. A craftsman. A builder of destinies." Sauron raised one gauntlet hand, and reality rippled. The air above his palms shimmered, and something began to form, a ring of dark metal, inscribed with the same symbols that marked Ahsoka's hand. "In my world I forged rings of power," Sauron continued, his voice resonant with dark pride. "Artifacts that could grant their bearers dominion over matter and spirit. I gave them to the leaders of various races, men, elves, dwarves. Each ring amplified their natural abilities, made them stronger, wiser, more capable of ruling their domains. The ring solidified, hovering in the air between them. It was beautiful and terrible, a perfect circle of what looked like black and gold, etched with flowing script that hurt to look at directly. But these rings came with a price," Ahsoka said quietly, understanding beginning to dawn. "All power has a price," Sauron acknowledged. "The rings bound their bearers to me through the one ring I forged in secret, a master ring that controlled all others. Those who wore my gifts became my servants, my Nazgûl, wraiths of terrible power who enforced my will across the lands." Ahsoka's hand went to her marked palm. "And you want to do the same thing here. Turn Force users into your slaves." "Slaves." Sauron's laughter echoed through the tomb. "No, Ahsoka. I offer partnership. In my world, I was forced to work through deception because I faced opposition from powers equal to my own. But here, the Force is vast but unfocused. The Jedi are weak. The Sith are fractured. There is no power that can stand against what we could build together." He gestured, and the ring flew toward her, stopping inches from her face. "This galaxy tears itself apart over philosophies. Light versus dark. Republic versus separatist. Order versus freedom. All false dichotomies. All meaningless divisions. With rings like this, we could create true unity. Imagine 9 Force users, each bearing a ring, each granted power beyond their wildest dreams. They would be the guardians of a new order, my Nazgûl of the Force. And you would control them all," Ahsoka said. "I would guide them. There is a difference. The Nazgûl in my world failed because they were given to those motivated by greed and ambition. But you, Ahsoka, you want justice. You want to end suffering. These are noble goals. With a ring's power, you could accomplish them." The ring pulsed, and Ahsoka felt it calling to her. She could sense the power within it, enough strength to stand against armies, to reshape worlds, to finally matter in a galaxy that had cast her aside. "What would it do to me?" she asked. Sauron tilted his helmeted head. "It would amplify your connection to the Force 100-fold. You would never tire, never age. Your skills in combat would surpass even the greatest Jedi Masters. You could sense thoughts, bend wills, command the very elements. And unlike the Jedi's restrictions or the Sith's self-destructive passion, you would retain your clarity of purpose. And the cost? Your will would be aligned with mine. Not dominated, aligned. We would share purpose. You would still be yourself, but you would understand my vision. Accept it. Help me build it." Ahsoka stared at the ring, her reflection distorted in its dark surface. She thought of all the injustice she'd witnessed. The clones dying as expendable property. The civilians caught between warring factions. The Senate's corruption. The Jedi's blind adherence to a failing republic. She thought of Anakin, burdened by visions he couldn't share with the Council. Of Padme, fighting political battles she could never win. Of every good person she'd met who was powerless to stop the galaxy's descent into chaos. "Show me," she said quietly. "Show you what?" "Show me what I could do with this power. Prove it's real." Sauron gestured toward the tomb's entrance. "Look outside." Ahsoka turned. Through the doorway, she could see the valley beyond. At Sauron's command, the ring in the air shot toward the entrance and hung there, suspended. "Reach for it with the Force," Sauron instructed. "Even without wearing it, you can taste its power through the mark I've given you." Against her better judgment, Ahsoka extended her awareness toward the ring. The moment her consciousness touched it, power flooded through her, raw, intoxicating, vast. She gasped as the Force amplified beyond anything she'd experienced. She could feel every grain of sand in the valley, every whisper of the dead Sith, the storms raging in the upper atmosphere, the very rotation of the planet beneath her feet. And she could change it. With barely a thought, she reached toward the valley. The ancient monuments began to tremble. Stone that had stood for millennia cracked and shifted. She was reshaping the landscape with her mind, moving matter like it was water. "Stop," she cried, releasing the connection. The power vanished, leaving her breathless and shaking. Sauron retrieved the ring, satisfaction evident in his posture. That was a fraction of what you could wield. Imagine that power focused, refined, directed toward ending this war, saving countless lives, bringing order to chaos. Ahsoka fell to her knees, overwhelmed. "It's too much. That kind of power, it would change me." "Yes," Sauron agreed, kneeling before her. "It would change you into what you were always meant to be. Not a servant, not a soldier, a ruler, a guardian, a force for true justice." He held out the ring between them. "The choice is yours, Ahsoka Tano. Take the ring and help me forge a better galaxy. Or walk away, return to your cargo runs, and watch from the shadows as everything you love burns." Ahsoka stared at the ring, her marked palm tingling. She knew this was a threshold, knew that accepting would mean betraying everything the Jedi had taught her. But hadn't the Jedi already betrayed her first? Ahsoka's hand trembled as she reached toward the ring. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, to run, to reject this dark gift. But those instincts had been trained into her by an order that had abandoned her when she needed them most. What had their wisdom brought her? Isolation, doubt, powerlessness. Her fingers touched the cold metal. The galaxy exploded. That was the only way to describe it. The moment the ring slid onto her finger, Ahsoka's consciousness expanded across Moraband and beyond. She felt the Clone Wars raging across 1,000 systems, each death, each scream, each moment of suffering blazing in her awareness like stars going nova. She felt Anakin, her former master, locked in combat above Cato Neimoidia, his confusion and anger a familiar ache. She felt the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, its masters meditating in their towers, blind to the darkness growing beneath their very feet. And she felt Sauron's presence, vast and ancient, flowing into her like water filling a vessel. "Good," his voice whispered, no longer external, but inside her very being. Asterisk, accept it. Let the power flow through you. This is what you were meant for, asterisk. "No," Ahsoka gasped, trying to pull the ring off. But her hand wouldn't obey. The metal had already begun to change, adapting to her, binding to her flesh. The symbol on her palm blazed with dark light, and she felt something fundamental shift in her connection to the Force. The dark side surged through her, but it wasn't the hot rage she'd felt when Barriss betrayed her. This was cold, calculating, patient. It whispered promises of efficiency, of order, of an end to chaos through absolute control. What's happening to me?" she cried, falling forward onto her hands. Sauron's armored form loomed over her. The transformation, The ring is binding itself to your spirit, anchoring me more fully to this reality. You are becoming the first of my Nazgûl, Ahsoka, a wraith of the Force, a servant of the greater vision. You said it wouldn't enslave me. Ahsoka snarled, trying desperately to center herself, to find the calm the Jedi had taught her. But that calm was gone, drowned in the flood of dark power. And it won't. Not as you understand slavery. You will serve willingly, once you understand. Once you see what we can accomplish together. The pain you feel now is merely adjustment. Ahsoka's body convulsed. She felt her connection to the light side of the Force being twisted, corrupted, reshaped into something new. Her mantrals ached as if they were being stretched. Her vision blurred, and when cleared, the world looked different, sharper, colder, rendered in shades of gray and shadow. The living force that had once sung through everything now felt distant, muffled, replaced by a constant awareness of Sauron's will. Fight it, she told herself through gritted teeth. Remember who you are. Remember Anakin. Remember Plo Koon. Remember. Remember betrayal. Sauron's voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. Remember the Council's doubt. Remember the Senate's condemnation. Remember standing alone in a cell, facing execution for crimes you didn't commit. Remember how easily they discarded you. The memories hit her like physical blows. Master Windu's cold assessment that the Force worked in mysterious ways. Tarkin's contempt. Even Anakin's helplessness, unable to protect her from the system he served. The pain of those memories fed the ring's power, and she felt herself slipping. No, she whispered, but her voice was weaker now. I won't become this. You won't become anything you don't choose to be, Sauron said, and there was almost gentleness in his tone. Look at yourself, Ahsoka. The ring shows you truth. You are always meant for more than the Jedi's half-measures and cowardly neutrality. You have the strength to rule, to enforce justice, to end suffering. Why deny yourself? Why deny the galaxy? Ahsoka looked at her hands and barely recognized them. Her orange skin had paled, taking on an almost translucent quality. Dark veins spread from where the ring sat on her finger, crawling up her arm like cracks in glass. But worse than the physical changes was what she felt inside, a growing certainty that Sauron was right. That power was the only true answer, that the Jedi way had failed. Stand, Sauron commanded, extending a gauntlet hand. And Ahsoka stood, though she didn't remember deciding to do so. The ring pulsed with approval, and she felt a surge of strength unlike anything the light side had ever granted her. The weakness and confusion burned away, replaced by crystalline clarity. How do you feel? Sauron asked. Ahsoka took inventory of herself. The pain was gone. So was the doubt. She felt complete, powerful, no longer adrift, but anchored to a purpose larger than herself. It should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. Strong, she admitted quietly. I feel strong. And you are. This is but the beginning. The ring will grow with you, amplify your abilities as you learn to wield them. But first, we must complete the forging. What do you mean? Sauron gestured, and the air shimmered. From nowhere, objects began to appear, floating around them. Kyber crystals torn from some forgotten cache, Sith artifacts that resonated with dark power, fragments of ancient technology, and something else, a small piece of meteorite that hummed with energy from beyond the galaxy. The ring you wear is the first of 9, Sauron explained, his voice taking on the cadence of a master craftsman discussing his art. But it is not yet complete. Each Nazgûl ring must be forged specifically for its bearer, incorporating elements of their nature, their power, their essence. You provided the spark when you touched the ring. Now we must complete the work. The objects began to orbit Ahsoka, faster and faster, until they became a blur of light and shadow. She felt the ring drawing them in, consuming their power, reshaping itself. The Kyber crystals screamed as they were corrupted, their natural connection to the light side inverted and twisted. The Sith artifacts crumbled to dust, their dark knowledge absorbed. The meteorite fragment melted, its otherworldly properties integrated. And Ahsoka screamed with them. The pain returned tenfold as the ring reshaped itself on her finger, burning new patterns into her flesh, carving its nature into her very spirit. She saw visions, herself standing atop a mountain of corpses, bringing order through terror, herself commanding armies of the dead, enforcing peace through absolute dominion, herself as something neither Jedi nor Sith, but something new and terrible. But beneath the horror, beneath the pain, a treacherous part of her whispered, Asterisk, at least you would matter. At least you would have power to change things. Asterisk. Yes. Sauron's voice was exultant. Accept it. This is your destiny, Ahsoka Tano. Not to serve the Jedi's failing order. Not to hide in the shadows while the galaxy burns. To be my first. My champion. The herald of a new age. The transformation reached its crescendo. The ring blazed with black fire, and Ahsoka felt the last barriers in her mind crumble. Sauron's will flowed into the empty spaces, not controlling her thoughts, but aligning them, bending her perspective until his goals and hers became indistinguishable. When the fire faded, Ahsoka Tano looked at the world through new eyes. The tomb of Darth Bane no longer felt oppressive. The dead Sith's power was nothing compared to what she now wielded. She could feel their spirits cowering at the edges of her perception, recognizing something older and more terrible than their petty philosophies. She looked at Sauron and understood him now, not as a deceiver or a monster, but as a visionary. He had seen his own world fall to chaos and division. He sought only to prevent the same fate from befalling this galaxy. And he had chosen her to help him. What do you need me to do? She asked. And her voice was different now, layered, resonant with power that echoed from somewhere beyond the physical. Sauron's helmet tilted in approval. First, you must learn to master your new abilities. The ring grants you dominion over the wills of lesser beings, enhanced combat prowess, and immunity to conventional harm. But these gifts require practice. And we must be careful. The Jedi will sense the disturbance you've caused. The Sith, particularly Darth Sidious, will take notice of a new power in the galaxy. Let them notice, Ahsoka said, and felt a thrill at her own boldness. Let them come. They'll learn what true power looks like. In time. But first, we need to build your legend carefully. The galaxy must see you not as a monster, but as a savior. We will start small, a planet in crisis, perhaps. A conflict that the Jedi cannot or will not resolve. You will intervene. You will bring order. And slowly, the people will turn to you instead of their failed institutions. Ahsoka nodded, the logic clear and compelling. She looked down at her hand, where the ring now sat as if it had always been there. The metal had changed, taking on a blue-tinged darkness that matched her former lightsabers. Inscribed along its surface were symbols in a language she somehow understood, words of binding, of dominion, of eternal service. One ring to rule them all, she read, understanding the echo of power from Sauron's own master ring, wherever it existed. This was a lesser ring, but still mighty, still terrible. She should have felt horror at what she'd become, should have felt grief for the Jedi teachings she'd abandoned. Should have felt anything but this cold, focused certainty. But the ring whispered that such feelings were weaknesses. And Ahsoka Tano, the first Nazgûl the Force, was weak no longer. The transformation took 3 days. Ahsoka remained in the tomb of Darth Bane, while her body and spirit adapted to the ring's power. Sauron's spectral form stood guard, teaching her the fundamentals of her new existence. The physical changes were the least of it. Her skin had taken on a pale, almost luminescent quality, and her eyes now gleamed with an unnatural light when she drew upon the ring's power. Her montrals had darkened, shot through with veins of shadow that pulsed with her heartbeat. But the internal changes were far more profound. Her connection to the Force had been fundamentally altered. Where once she'd felt the living energy of the galaxy flowing around and through her, now she perceived it as something to be grasped, controlled, dominated. The light side hadn't disappeared entirely. She could still sense it, like a distant sun viewed through dark glass, but it no longer called to her. Instead, the ring had created a new pathway, a fusion of dark side energy and Sauron's otherworldly power. You are no longer entirely of this galaxy, Sauron explained as she practiced levitating stones with her mind. The ring has made you something between a bridge connecting my power to the Force itself. Through you, I can begin to truly shape this reality. Ahsoka crushed the stone to powder with a thought, feeling no strain. What am I now? Still Togruta? Still alive. Alive? Yes, after a fashion. The ring sustains you. You will not age as mortals do. You will not tire. Wounds will heal with unnatural speed. You are becoming what the Nazgûl were in my world, immortal servants bound to my will through the ring's power. You keep saying servants, Ahsoka said, and there was an edge to her voice. Some part of her, growing smaller each day, still bristled at the idea of servitude. I serve because I choose to, because your vision is right. Of course, Sauron agreed smoothly. The ring merely ensures our purposes align. You serve willingly because you understand the necessity. That is what makes you perfect, Ahsoka. Forced loyalty is brittle. Chosen loyalty, reinforced by power, that is eternal. She wanted to argue, but the words died on her lips. The ring pulsed warmly on her finger, and she felt Sauron's approval wash over her like a comforting blanket. He was right. He was always right. That certainty should have terrified her, but instead it brought peace. On the third day, Sauron declared her ready. We need to test your abilities in a real situation, he said. And we need to begin building the narrative that will make the galaxy accept you. There is a world called Ryloth, your own people's homeworld. It suffers under separatist occupation. The Jedi have been too occupied with other battles to liberate it fully. The people suffer. This is where you will make your debut. Ahsoka's montrals twitched at the mention of Ryloth. She'd fought there during the war, had seen the Twi'lek people's suffering firsthand. The thought of returning, of freeing them, the Jedi will be there, she said. Master Windu has forces in that sector. Exactly. They will witness what you've become. Some will try to save you. Others will try to destroy you. But all will spread word of a new power in the galaxy, a former Jedi who has transcended their limitations. And if Anakin is there? The question came out before she could stop it, and she felt a flicker of something beneath the ring's influence. Concern? Fear? Affection? Sauron was silent for a moment. Your former master will be problematic. He cares for you deeply. That emotional attachment the Jedi forbid yet cannot eliminate. If he confronts you, the ring will protect you from his attacks. But I wonder, could we perhaps use his attachment? Turn it to our advantage. What do you mean? Anakin Skywalker is powerful. More powerful than he realizes. I have observed him through the Force these past days, and I sense potential, great potential, and great conflict. He loves his wife in secret. He fears loss. He resents the Council's restrictions. These are cracks in his loyalty, Ahsoka. Cracks we might widen. The idea sent a chill through her. You want to corrupt him too. Give him a ring. Eventually. But not yet. First, we need you to be the proof of concept. Show him what you've gained. Show him that there is a path beyond the Jedi's failing dogma. Plant the seeds of doubt. When the time is right, when he is desperate enough, he will come to us willingly. Ahsoka considered this. Part of her, the part that still remembered being Anakin's Padawan, remembered their banter and their bond, recoiled at the thought of manipulating him. But the ring whispered that it wasn't manipulation. It was liberation. She would be freeing him from the chains the Jedi had placed on his potential, just as Sauron had freed her. I'll do it, she said. For his own good. Excellent. Now come. We have preparations to make. The journey to Ryloth took 4 days through hyperspace. Ahsoka spent the time in meditation, though it bore little resemblance to Jedi meditation. Instead of emptying her mind and opening herself to the Force, she focused her will, bending the energy around her to her purposes. The ring taught her through sensation and instinct how to project fear into the minds of others, how to drain life energy to sustain herself, how to perceive the threads of destiny and pull them in desired directions. By the time she emerged from hyperspace above Rylotha's rust-colored surface, she had become something the galaxy had never seen before. The planet below was scarred by war. Separatist frigates blockaded the major population centers, while droid armies occupied the cities. Republic forces held scattered positions, but they were clearly losing. Ahsoka's enhanced senses picked up the suffering of millions, Twi'leks enslaved, families separated, hope dying under the weight of endless occupation. She felt their pain, and she felt nothing. No, that wasn't quite right. She felt purpose. These people needed order. They needed someone strong enough to end their suffering decisively. The Republic offered drawn-out campaigns and incremental victories. The Separatists offered only exploitation. She would offer absolute liberation at the cost of absolute obedience. "Where shall we begin?" Sauron's voice asked from within her mind. His spectral form had remained on Moraband, but through the ring, they were always connected. "The Slave Processing Center in Lesu," Ahsoka said, calling up tactical data on her display. "The Separatists are holding 5,000 Twi'leks there, preparing them for transport to labor camps. If I free them, word will spread quickly. A sound strategy. Remember, you must be seen as a savior, not a conqueror. Let them witness your power, but frame it as protection, not domination. Ahsoka guided her ship down through Rylotha's atmosphere, bypassing the blockade with ease. The ring granted her an instinctive understanding of how to bend detection systems, how to make sensors slide past her vessel, as if it didn't exist. She landed in the wastes outside Lesu and emerged into the perpetual twilight of Rylotha's synchronized rotation. She no longer wore her traditional Jedi garb. Instead, Sauron had taught her to manifest armor through the Force itself, a dark bodysuit that seemed to absorb light, overlaid with plates of blackened metal that appeared and disappeared as needed. Her face remained visible, a calculated choice. The people needed to see who was saving them. The Slave Processing Center loomed ahead, a fortress of durasteel and automated defenses. Battle droids patrolled its perimeter, while Twi'lek prisoners were herded through its gates and chains. Ahsoka walked toward it alone, her footsteps silent on the rocky ground. The first battle droid to spot her raised its blaster. "Halt. This is a restricted." She gestured with her ringed hand, and the droid crumpled like wet paper, its internal circuitry overloaded by a surge of Force energy channeled through the ring's power. A dozen more droids turned toward her, their photoreceptors glowing red in the dim light. Intruder detected. Open fire. Blaster bolts filled the air, a storm of red energy that would have shredded any normal being. But Ahsoka was no longer normal. She raised her hand, and the ring flared with dark light. The bolts stopped in midair, frozen like insects in amber. With a flick of her wrist, she sent them back at their sources. Battle droids exploded in showers of sparks and molten metal. More droids poured from the facility, dozens, then hundreds. Ahsoka stood at the center of the onslaught and felt only exhilaration. This was what power meant. Not the careful, measured applications of Force the Jedi taught. Not the passionate but undisciplined rage of the Sith. This was absolute dominion over matter and energy. She thrust both hands forward, and a wave of invisible force radiated outward. Every droid within 50 meters collapsed, their systems overloaded. Those beyond that radius found their weapons torn from their hands and crushed to scrap. Within minutes, hundreds of battle droids lay in ruins around her, and she hadn't even needed to move from her position. The facility's main gate ground open, and a lone figure emerged, a Neimoidian overseer, his eyes wide with terror. What are you?" he stammered. "The Separatist Alliance, Will." "The Separatist Alliance is irrelevant," Ahsoka said, her voice carrying power that made the Neimoidian fall to his knees. "Release the prisoners. All of them. Now." I can't, my superiors." Ahsoka focused on the ring and reached into the Neimoidian's mind. She felt his thoughts, his fear, his greed, his loyalty to Count Dooku's cause. She grasped those thoughts like threads and pulled. The Neimoidian's eyes glazed over, his will bending to hers. "Release the prisoners," she commanded, and power thrummed through each word. "Yes, of course, immediately." The Neimoidian stumbled back into the facility, his mind no longer his own. Within minutes, the gates opened fully, and Twi'lek prisoners began streaming out. They emerged hesitantly at first, then in a flood, thousands of them, freed from their chains. They saw the destroyed droids, saw Ahsoka standing amid the carnage, and their expressions shifted from fear to awe. "Who are you?" one of them asked, a young male whose Lekka bore scars from slave collars. Ahsoka looked at the freed prisoners and felt Sauron's approval radiating through the ring. This was the moment. This was where the legend began. "I am what the Jedi could not be," she said, her voice carrying to every ear. "I am justice without compromise. I am freedom without weakness. I am Ahsoka Tano, and I have returned to liberate Ryloth." The Twi'leks began to murmur, some recognition sparking in their eyes. They had heard of her, the Padawan who'd fought here during the war, who'd walked away from the Jedi Order. "The Jedi abandoned you," Ahsoka continued, feeling the words flow through her as if Sauron himself spoke. "The Republic promises liberation, but delivers only more war. I offer you something better, true freedom, purchased with true power. Follow me, and Ryloth will never bow to oppressors again." A cheer erupted from the crowd, small at first, then building like a wave. The freed Twi'leks surged toward her, their hands reaching out, their voices raised in gratitude and hope. And Ahsoka Tano, the first Nazgûl of the Force, smiled. News of the liberation spread across Ryloth like wildfire. Within hours, every resistance cell, every hidden village, every pocket of Republic forces heard the same story. A former Jedi had returned, wielding power beyond comprehension, and she was systematically dismantling the Separatist occupation. Ahsoka moved like a storm across the planet's surface. The slave processing center was only the beginning. She struck at droid factories, supply depots, and command centers with ruthless efficiency. The ring granted her abilities that made conventional warfare obsolete. She could sense enemy positions through the Force with perfect clarity. She could disable entire battalions with a thought. She could walk through blaster fire without fear, her armor of shadow turning aside energy that would have killed a dozen Jedi. But it was the psychological warfare that proved most devastating. Ahsoka had learned from Sauron that true dominion came not from destroying enemies, but from breaking their will to resist. At each facility she conquered, she would spare the Separatist commanders and troops, but only after bending their minds to her will through the ring's power. They would return to their bases as changed beings, spreading fear of the unstoppable wraith who commanded the Force itself. Some went mad. Others simply abandoned their posts and fled into the wastes. Within 3 days, the Separatist hold on Ryloth began to crumble. It was on the 4th day that the Jedi arrived. Ahsoka stood atop the ruins of a Separatist command center in the city of Nabit, surveying her work. Below, freed Twi'leks were already beginning to organize themselves into a provisional government under her guidance, or rather, under the subtle mental influence she exerted through the ring. They believed themselves free, but Sauron had taught her well. True control required the illusion of choice. 3 Republic ships just entered orbit. Sauron's voice warned from within her mind. "I sense Jedi among them. Strong ones, *. Ahsoka reached out with her enhanced senses and felt them immediately. Bright flames of light side energy descending toward the planet. She recognized one of them instantly, Anakin Skywalker. His Force presence a familiar blend of power and barely contained emotion. Her heart, what remained of it, twisted. The ring pulsed reassuringly on her finger, reminding her that sentiment was weakness. Anakin represented the old way, the failed philosophy she transcended. He would try to save her. He would fail. And, in his failure, he might finally begin to understand. "Let them come," she said aloud. The Jedi landed their gunship in Nabit's central plaza, and Ahsoka made no attempt to hide. She stood in the open, surrounded by grateful Twi'leks, who had begun treating her like a liberating hero. When Anakin emerged from the ship, followed by Obi-Wan Kenobi and a squad of clone troopers. She saw the exact moment he recognized her. His eyes widened. His hand went to his lightsaber, then froze. Ahsoka. She descended from her vantage point with unnatural grace, her dark armor flowing like liquid shadow. The crowd of Twi'leks parted before her, some bowing their heads in reverence. Ahsoka could feel their devotion through the Force, not freely given, but carefully cultivated through the ring's subtle influence. "Hello, Master," she said, and the word felt strange on her tongue. He was her master no longer. She served a greater purpose now. Anakin took a step forward, his face a mixture of relief and confusion. "We thought, after you left the Order, we lost track of you. There were reports of someone matching your description, liberating separatist-held territories. But I didn't believe." He trailed off, taking in her altered appearance. "What happened to you?" "I evolved," Ahsoka said simply. "I found power beyond the Jedi's limited understanding. And I've been using it to do what the Republic cannot. End this occupation decisively." Obi-Wan stepped forward, his hand resting lightly on his lightsaber hilt. His keen eyes missed nothing, the pallor of her skin, the dark veins spreading from the ring on her finger, the unnatural gleam in her eyes. "That's dark side corruption, Ahsoka. Whatever power you found, it's consuming you." "Is it?" Ahsoka gestured to the freed prisoners around them. "Look at these people, Master Kenobi. I've liberated thousands in 4 days. How many months has the Republic been fighting on Ryloth with minimal progress? How many Twi'leks have suffered while the Jedi meditated and the Senate debated?" "Freedom bought with darkness is no freedom at all," Obi-Wan countered, but there was sadness in his voice. "You know this, Ahsoka. You were one of our best students." "Was I? Then why did the Council abandon me when I needed them most?" The anger came easily now, fed by the ring. "Why did they let me stand trial for crimes I didn't commit? Why did they offer me nothing but platitudes when I proved my innocence?" Anakin flinched at the words. "Ahsoka, we failed you. I failed you. But this, whatever you've become, this isn't the answer. Come back with us. We can help you. Help me." Ahsoka laughed, and the sound echoed with power that made the clones shift nervously. "I don't need help, Anakin. I need you to open your eyes. Look at what I've accomplished. Look at what true power can achieve when it's not shackled by the Jedi's fear." She raised her ringed hand, and the Force responded with terrifying immediacy. The rubble around them began to levitate, tons of durasteel and stone lifting into the air as if weightless. The Twi'leks gasped in awe. The clones raised their weapons. But Anakin and Obi-Wan simply stared, understanding dawning in their eyes. "That ring," Obi-Wan said quietly, "it's the source of your power and your corruption." "This ring is a gift," Ahsoka said, lowering her hand and letting the rubble settle gently back to the ground. "It was given to me by one who understands what the Jedi refuse to acknowledge, that order requires strength, and strength requires sacrifice." "Given by whom?" Anakin demanded, his hand now firmly on his lightsaber. "Who did this to you, Ahsoka?" "Careful," Sauron warned. Asterisk, revealing too much too soon could unite them against us. Plant out instead, asterisk. "By someone who sees the galaxy's true potential," Ahsoka said. "Someone who isn't bound by your archaic philosophies or the Sith's self-destructive passion. There is a third path, Anakin. A path of absolute power wielded with absolute purpose." She took a step toward him, and the clone troopers raised their rifles. Ahsoka didn't even glance at them. She simply exerted her will through the ring, and every weapon simultaneously locked up, their triggers frozen. One trooper started, but fell silent when Ahsoka looked at him. The weight of her gaze, enhanced by the ring's power, was enough to make him step back. "I'm not your enemy," Ahsoka said, returning her attention to Anakin. "I never was. But I'm no longer the naive Padawan who believed the Jedi had all the answers. I've seen the truth. The Republic is corrupt. The Jedi are blind. And this war will continue until someone with real power ends it." "Power like yours?" Obi-Wan asked. "Power that comes from enslaving your own will to some dark entity?" We can sense it, Ahsoka. That ring is controlling you. The ring augments me, Ahsoka corrected. It doesn't control. It enlightens. It shows me possibilities the Jedi would never consider. For instance, she focused her attention on Anakin, reaching out with her enhanced senses. Through the ring, she could perceive not just his surface emotions, but the deeper currents beneath. His love for Padme, his frustration with the Council, his fear of loss, his anger at being held back from his potential. Sauron had been right. Anakin Skywalker was ripe for corruption. I can sense your conflict, Master, she said softly. The Council doesn't trust you. They give you missions, but withhold rank. They demand you follow their code while secretly knowing you've broken it. You love someone, don't you? Someone the Jedi Order would forbid. Anakin's face went pale. Ahsoka, stop. Why? Because it's true? Because admitting it means facing how hypocritical the Order really is. She moved closer, and despite Obi-Wan's warning hand on his shoulder, Anakin didn't back away. They train us to value all life, then send us to war. They preach non-attachment, then expect us to care about the people we protect. They claim to serve the Force, yet they've allied themselves with a republic so corrupt it's barely distinguishable from the Separatists. She's trying to manipulate you, Anakin, Obi-Wan said firmly. This is what darkness does. It twists truth into poison. Is it a lie? Ahsoka challenged. Is anything I've said untrue? Anakin said nothing, and his silence spoke volumes. Ahsoka pressed her advantage. You have more power than any Jedi in generations, Anakin. More than Master Yoda. More than Master Windu. But they fear you. They hold you back because they're afraid of what you might become if you reached your full potential. Just like they feared me. Don't listen to her, Obi-Wan said, but there was desperation creeping into his voice now. Ahsoka, if there's any part of you that remembers who you were, please, remove that ring. Let us help you fight whatever has taken hold. Ahsoka looked at her former master and felt something crack in the ring's influence. A moment of genuine emotion breaking through. Obi-Wan had always been kind to her, had always treated her with respect. He didn't deserve this manipulation. But the ring pulsed, and the moment passed. Sentiment was weakness. Purpose was all that mattered. I can't remove it, she said, and that much was true. It's bound to me now. Part of me. But I wouldn't want to remove it even if I could. This power, it's shown me what I'm truly capable of. What we could all be capable of if we weren't afraid. She turned to address the crowd of Twi'leks that had gathered, watching the confrontation. These Jedi come to liberate you, but they offer only more war. More suffering stretched across years of incremental victories. I offer you immediate freedom, absolute protection, a new order where strength ensures peace. That's tyranny, Obi-Wan said. You're describing tyranny, Ahsoka. I'm describing efficiency, she countered. The Jedi way has failed. It's time for something new. Anakin finally spoke, his voice heavy with pain. Snips, please. I know you're angry. I know you feel betrayed. But this isn't you. This darkness, this power, it's consuming you from the inside. I can feel it. Can't you? For a moment, just a moment, Ahsoka hesitated. She could feel it too, if she was honest. The cold emptiness where her connection to the light side used to be. The constant pressure of Sauron's will aligning with hers. The way her emotions had been flattened into a singular focus on power and order. But then the ring whispered its reassurances, and the doubt evaporated. What you feel is my transformation, she said. I'm becoming something greater than a Jedi. Something this galaxy desperately needs. And when you're ready to admit that the Order has failed you too, Anakin, I'll be here. We can reshape this galaxy together. She stepped back, her form beginning to blur at the edges as she prepared to teleport away, a trick Sauron had taught her, using the ring to briefly step outside normal space. Wait. Anakin ignited his lightsaber, the blue blade humming to life. I can't let you leave like this. If you won't come willingly, You'll what? Fight me. Ahsoka smiled sadly. We both know how that would end, Master. You taught me everything you know. And now I have power you can't comprehend. Anakin charged, his lightsaber raised. But Ahsoka was faster. She gestured with her ringed hand, and Anakin froze mid-stride, held in place by invisible bonds of force energy stronger than Durasteel cables. "I don't want to hurt you," Ahsoka said, walking toward him until they were face to face. "Any of you. This galaxy has seen enough violence. But I will establish order, with or without Jedi approval. The question is whether you'll help me or oppose me." She released Anakin, who stumbled forward, gasping. "Think about what I've said," Ahsoka continued. "Watch what I accomplish. And when you finally realize the Jedi way is a path to failure, find me. The offer stands." Before any of them could respond, Ahsoka drew upon the ring's power and vanished, stepping sideways through the Force to reappear miles away, leaving only a swirl of shadow where she'd stood. Behind her, she felt Anakin's anguish through the Force, a bright flame of pain and confusion. Good. Let him question. Let him doubt. The seeds were planted. "Well done," Sauron's voice purred in her mind. Asterisk, "You handled that masterfully. The Skywalker boy is closer to breaking than he realizes." Asterisk. "He won't break easily," Ahsoka said. "He loved the Order once." Asterisk, "And you loved it too. Yet here you are." "Everyone breaks eventually, Ahsoka. It's simply a matter of finding the right pressure point." Asterisk. Ahsoka looked at the ring on her finger, at the dark power pulsing within it, and wondered if she'd already broken without realizing it. Then the thought faded, smothered by the ring's influence, and she turned her attention to the next target on Ryloth. There was still work to be done. The encounter with Anakin troubled Ahsoka more than she wanted to admit. Even with the ring's influence dampening her emotions, she couldn't completely suppress the memories. Sparring sessions in the temple, missions across the galaxy, Anakin's terrible jokes during tense moments. He had been more than her master. He had been her friend. But friendship was a luxury she could no longer afford. "You're dwelling on sentiment," Sauron observed, his voice a constant presence in her thoughts now. "This is counterproductive." "I'm assessing variables," Ahsoka replied, standing on a cliff overlooking Rylotha's capital city of Lesu. Below, the last separatist holdouts were evacuating under cover of darkness. She'd given them 12 hours to leave. Any who remained would face her wrath. "Anakin will report to the Council. They'll classify me as a dark side threat. The Republic will send more Jedi. Asterisk, good. Let them come. Each confrontation spreads your legend. Each Jedi who witnesses your power and lives to tell of it becomes an unwitting agent of our cause. Fear and awe are two sides of the same coin, asterisk. And if they send someone I can't defeat, Master Yoda, Master Windu, then we adapt." Sauron's spectral form materialized beside her, translucent in the moonlight. He'd grown stronger since she accepted the ring, more able to project himself across distances. Asterisk, "But I doubt they'll risk their greatest warriors on what they perceive as a single fallen Padawan. They're fighting a war on 1,000 fronts. They'll send intermediaries, investigators, precisely the opponents you can handle." Asterisk. Ahsoka nodded, but uncertainty gnawed at her. The ring suppressed it, pushed it down into the depths of her consciousness, but it was still there. What if she was wrong? What if the power she'd gained wasn't worth what she'd sacrificed? "You sacrificed nothing," Sauron said, reading her thoughts through their bond. Asterisk, "You exchanged weakness for strength, uncertainty for purpose. The Jedi way would have you meditate on the Force for decades before taking decisive action. By then, how many millions would have died? How many worlds would have burned? You're saving lives, Ahsoka. Never forget that, asterisk." Before she could respond, she felt a disturbance in the Force, sharp, cold, and sickeningly familiar. Not the warm presence of light side practitioners, but something darker, more calculating. A ship descended through the atmosphere, sleek and black, bearing no Republic or Separatist markings. It landed a kilometer from her position, and a single figure emerged. Count Dooku. The Sith Lord walked toward her with aristocratic grace, his curved lightsaber hilt visible at his belt. Ahsoka tensed, the ring flaring to life on her finger. This was a threat of a different magnitude. Dooku was no ordinary dark side user. He was a former Jedi Master trained by Yoda himself, with decades of experience in both light and dark philosophies. Interesting, Sauron mused. Asterisk, the Sith have taken notice sooner than expected. Be cautious. This one is dangerous. Asterisk. Dooku stopped at a respectful distance, his hands clasped behind his back. Ahsoka Tano. What an unexpected pleasure. When I heard reports of a former Jedi single-handedly dismantling our occupation of Ryloth, I confess I was intrigued. Count Dooku. Ahsoka's voice was flat, controlled. You're a long way from separatist space. Ryloth is separatist space, by right of conquest. Or it was, until you arrived. Dooku's eyes studied her with unnerving intensity. Tell me, child, what brings a disillusioned Padawan to wage war on my forces? Revenge? Misguided heroism? Or something else entirely? Justice, Ahsoka said simply. Ah, justice. Dooku smiled thinly. A concept the Jedi love to invoke while doing precious little to achieve it. But you're no longer Jedi, are you? I can sense the change in you. The power you've acquired. That ring on your finger. It's not of this galaxy, is it? Ahsoka's hand instinctively moved to conceal the ring. What do you want, Dooku? Direct. I appreciate that. Very well. I want to understand what you are. You're not Sith. You lack the passion and the training. Yet you wield dark side power with remarkable proficiency. You're not Jedi. You've clearly transcended their limitations. So what are you, Ahsoka Tano? And more importantly, whose pawn are you? Careful, Sauron warned. Asterisk, he suspects something beyond conventional force usage. Don't reveal too much. Asterisk. I'm nobody's pawn, Ahsoka said, letting anger creep into her voice. I act according to my own will. Dooku laughed, a dry, mirthless sound. My dear child, everyone is someone's pawn. The Jedi are pawns of the Republic. I am a pawn of... Well, that's not relevant. The question is whether you're a pawn who knows who's moving her, or one who still believes she's playing the game. He began to circle her slowly, hands still clasped behind his back. Ahsoka rotated to keep him in view, her senses alert for any attack. I've lived a long time, Dooku continued. Long enough to recognize power when I see it. That ring of yours, it grants you abilities, yes, but it also binds you to something. Someone. I can sense the connection, like a thread stretching across dimensions. Who is your master, Ahsoka? What entity have you sold yourself to? I sold nothing. I made a choice. Did you? Dooku stopped circling, facing her directly. Then prove it. Remove the ring. Show me that you're truly in control. Ahsoka's hand moved toward the ring, then froze. She couldn't remove it. Not physically. The metal had fused to her flesh on a molecular level. But more than that, she didn't want to remove it. The thought of losing the power, the certainty, the connection to Sauron, it was unthinkable. Dooku saw her hesitation and nodded knowingly. I thought as much. You're bound to it, just as surely as if you wore a slave collar. The irony is delicious. You came to Ryloth to free slaves, yet you've enslaved yourself to an artifact of unknown origin. Enough talk, Ahsoka said, raising her ringed hand. Power gathered around her, dark and terrible. State your business or leave. My business. Dooku's expression shifted, becoming almost gentle. I came to make you an offer, child. You seek to bring order to this chaotic galaxy. So do I. So does my master, Darth Sidious. We have resources, armies, political influence. You have power, but you're alone. Together, we could achieve far more than either of us could separately. He's trying to recruit you for the Sith, Sauron hissed. This is both an opportunity and a threat. I'm not interested in joining the Sith, Ahsoka said. Your philosophy is as flawed as the Jedi's. Passion without discipline leads only to self-destruction. True Sith philosophy is far more nuanced than that, but I won't bore you with theology. Dooku extended his hand. I'm not asking you to become Sith. I'm proposing an alliance. You continue your campaign of liberation or conquest, or whatever you're calling it. We provide support, intelligence, resources. In exchange, you refrain from interfering with separatist operations outside Ryloth. A simple quid pro quo. Refuse him, Sauron advised. We don't need the Sith. They'll only try to dominate or destroy us once we've served our purpose. Better to remain independent and build our own power base. No, Ahsoka said firmly. I work alone. Or rather, I work according to a vision that doesn't include the Separatist alliance. Dooku's expression hardened. I see. Then you've chosen to make an enemy of both the Republic and the Separatists. Bold but foolish. You may have power, child, but you lack the wisdom to wield it effectively. I have all the wisdom I need. Do you? Then tell me, what's your endgame? You've liberated Ryloth. What's next? Another planet? A dozen? 100? And when those planets' populations resist your rule, as populations always do, what then? Will you enforce your order through fear? Through domination? Congratulations, Ahsoka. You'll have become exactly what you claim to oppose. The words struck deeper than Ahsoka expected. She'd been so focused on immediate problems, freeing slaves, defeating droids, demonstrating her power, that she hadn't fully considered what came after. Sauron spoke of establishing a new order, but the specifics remained vague. How would she govern? How would she prevent the freed people from simply creating new conflicts? Don't let him distract you with philosophy, Sauron said. His questions are designed to create doubt. We'll cross those bridges when we come to them, But the doubt was already seated, another crack in the ring's perfect certainty. Dooku sensed her hesitation. You're beginning to understand, aren't you? Power's easy to acquire. Maintaining order is the true challenge. The Sith have millennia of experience in this regard. The Jedi have their own methods, flawed though they are. But you're inventing your methodology on the fly, guided by an entity you barely understand. That's a recipe for catastrophe. I understand enough, Ahsoka said, but her voice lacked conviction. Then understand this. Dooku's hand moved to his lightsaber. I came here offering alliance because I believed you might be salvageable. But if you insist on remaining independent, operating outside any established structure, you become a wild card, an unpredictable element. And my master despises unpredictability. The curved hilt flew to his hand, and a crimson blade ignited with a snap hiss. Lord Sidious has ordered me to neutralize you if you refuse cooperation. I admit, I'm curious to see how your mysterious power stands against a true master of the dark side. Ahsoka didn't ignite a lightsaber. She no longer carried one. Instead, she raised her ringed hand, and shadow coalesced around it, forming a blade of pure darkness that hummed with otherworldly power. It was neither lightsaber nor vibroblade, but something between, a weapon forged from the ring's energy and her will. You're welcome to try, she said. Dooku attacked with the speed and precision of a Makashi master, his blade flickering in tight, economical strikes designed to probe her defenses. Ahsoka met each attack with her shadow blade, finding that the ring granted her perfect awareness of his movements. She could see the pattern in his footwork, anticipate his feints, counter his ripostes with minimal effort. But Dooku wasn't just testing her blade work. He struck at her through the Force itself, sending waves of crushing pressure that would have driven a lesser opponent to their knees. Lightning crackled from his free hand, searing the air between them. He was combining conventional Sith techniques with the refined skill of his Jedi training, creating a fighting style that was lethally effective. Ahsoka met it all with the ring's power. The crushing Force waves dissipated against her will. The lightning was absorbed by her shadow armor and redirected harmlessly into the ground. She was stronger than him, faster, more durable. But Dooku was more experienced. Impressive, he said between strikes. You wield your stolen power with natural talent. But you lack refinement, discipline. You're a blunt instrument trying to perform surgery. He switched tactics mid-combo, transitioning from Makashi's precision to Ataru's acrobatics. He flipped over her guard, his blade seeking her exposed back. Ahsoka spun, bringing her shadow blade up just in time to catch a strike. The impact sent shockwaves rippling across the clifftop. Who taught you to fight like this? Dooku demanded. Not the Jedi. This is something else. Something ancient. End this, Sauron commanded. He's gathering information with every exchange. Don't let him analyze your abilities further. Ahsoka agreed. She channeled the ring's full power, letting it flood through her like a dark, star-going supernova. Her shadow blade multiplied, becoming dozens of ethereal weapons that struck at Dooku from impossible angles. He blocked 3 for 5, but the 6th caught him across the shoulder, burning through his armor. Dooku leaped back, blood seeping through his robes. So, you do have teeth. Leave Ryloth, Ahsoka said, her voice resonating with power. Tell your master that this world is under my protection. Any attempt to reclaim it will be met with absolute force. Dooku studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he deactivated his lightsaber and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect, or perhaps mockery. Very well. I'll deliver your message to Lord Sidious. But know this, Ahsoka Tano. You've made an enemy far more dangerous than you realize. My master doesn't tolerate threats to his plans. And this war, this entire galactic conflict, it's all part of those plans. By interfering, you've placed yourself in his path. That's not a position anyone survives for long. He returned to his ship without another word, leaving Ahsoka alone on the cliff. He's right about one thing, Sauron said quietly. This Sidious is dangerous. I can sense his presence in the Force, vast, calculated, ancient. He's been orchestrating events from the shadows for years. Perhaps decades, Can we defeat him? Ahsoka asked. Eventually. But not yet. We need more rings. More Nazgûl. An army of Force wielders bound to our cause, each as powerful as you. Only then can we challenge the true powers of this galaxy. Ahsoka looked at her ringed hand, at the dark power pulsing within it, and wondered if she'd merely traded one form of servitude for another. But the thought faded, as such thoughts always did, and she turned back toward Lesu. There was still work to be done. Word of Ahsoka's confrontation with Count Dooku spread across the HoloNet within days. The story was embellished with each retelling. Some claimed she defeated the Sith Lord in single combat, others that she'd driven him away with dark sorcery beyond Jedi or Sith comprehension. The truth mattered less than the narrative taking shape. A new power had emerged in the galaxy, one that answered to neither Republic nor Separatist. Ryloth became her stronghold. The Twi'lek people, freed from Separatist occupation, looked to her as their savior. Ahsoka established a provisional government, ostensibly democratic, but subtly influenced by the ring's power. She didn't need to rule openly when she could bend the will of key leaders, plant suggestions in their minds, ensure that every decision aligned with Sauron's vision of order. But Ryloth was only the beginning. We need to accelerate our plans, Sauron said one evening as Ahsoka stood in what had once been a Separatist command center, now converted into her base of operations. Dooku will report to this Sidious. The Jedi Council will convene. Both sides will begin treating you as a priority threat. We must move before they coordinate a response. What do you propose? Ahsoka asked, studying a holographic map of the Outer Rim. Red markers indicated systems still under Separatist control. Blue showed Republic holdings. Neither color satisfied her anymore. We need to forge more rings. Create more Nazgûl. One is powerful, but nine Force wielders bound to our purpose could reshape this galaxy. But first, we need candidates. Ahsoka traced a finger across the map, considering. Force sensitives who would accept your gift. That's a narrow pool. The Jedi won't willingly corrupt themselves, and the Sith serve their own masters. Then we look elsewhere. The galaxy is full of Force sensitives who reject both Jedi and Sith philosophies. Dathomirian Night Sisters. Mandalorian Force users hidden among their clans. The Guardians of the Wills on Jedha. Inquisitors disillusioned with the Empire. He paused. Forgive me. The Empire doesn't exist yet in this timeline. But there are always Force users who exist in the cracks between the great powers, asterisk, and former Jedi, Ahsoka said quietly. Those who left or were expelled. Those who feel betrayed, just like I did. Exactly. Sauron's approval radiated through their connection. Asterisk, you understand perfectly. We don't need to corrupt the righteous. We need to empower the disillusioned. Give them the strength to pursue justice on their own terms. Asterisk. Ahsoka expanded the map, her mind already working through possibilities. Barriss Offee, her former friend, imprisoned for terrorism against the Jedi Temple. Barriss had seen the same hypocrisy Ahsoka had, but had responded with bombs instead of walking away. Would she accept a ring if it meant channeling her rage productively? There were others. Rumors spoke of a Zabrak warrior on Dathomir who'd broken from the Night Sisters' traditions. Reports mentioned a former Jedi Knight who'd established an independent colony on Jabium after becoming disillusioned with the war. Even among the Separatists, there were Force sensitives who served Dooku out of necessity rather than conviction. I sense your mind working, Sauron observed. Asterisk, you're thinking tactically. Good. But remember, the rings require preparation. I need time to forge each one, to attune it to its intended bearer. We cannot mass-produce them like your Republic produces clone soldiers. Asterisk. How long? Asterisk, for the next ring? Several weeks. I'll need you to gather materials, kyber crystals, Force-imbued artifacts, rare metals. And I'll need a forge strong enough to contain the power I'll channel. Moraband served for your ring, but we should establish something more permanent. A sanctum where the veil between realities is thin enough for my full power to manifest. Asterisk. Ahsoka considered this. The Mallocker system, ancient, Sith superweapon, there created a wound in the Force. If anywhere in this galaxy would suit your needs. A proximity alarm interrupted her. Ahsoka's enhanced senses immediately detected the Republic frigate entering Rylotha's orbit. She reached out with the Force and felt the presence aboard. Not Anakin this time, but another Jedi she recognized. Plo Koon. Her chest tightened. Master Plo had always been kind to her, had called her Little Sokka, with genuine affection. He'd been one of the few council members who'd initially questioned her guilt during the temple bombing investigation. Sentiment again, Sauron chided. Will you let emotional attachment compromise our mission? No, Ahsoka said firmly, pushing the feeling down. But I won't kill him either. He deserves better than that. Asterisk, then convince him. Show him what you've become. Make him understand. Asterisk. The meeting took place in Lessu's Central Plaza, the same location where Ahsoka had confronted Anakin weeks earlier. Plo Koon descended alone, his distinctive respirator mask reflecting the afternoon sun. He carried no weapon in hand, though his lightsaber hung at his belt. Ahsoka, he said, his voice modulated through the mask, but still carrying warmth. It grieves me to see what you've become. Master Plo. Ahsoka remained on the plaza's raised platform, looking down at him. The positioning was deliberate, a subtle assertion of dominance. I'm surprised the council sent you. I thought they'd choose someone more aggressive. The council is divided on how to approach you. Master Windu advocates for an arrest warrant. Master Yoda counsels patience and understanding. I volunteered to come because I know you, Little Sokka. I trained with you. I fought beside you. And I refuse to believe you're truly lost. I'm not lost, Ahsoka said. I found exactly what I was looking for. Purpose. Power. The ability to actually make a difference instead of endlessly deliberating in temple chambers. Plo Koon climbed the steps slowly, his hands visible and empty. The power you've gained comes at a terrible cost. We can all sense it, the corruption spreading through you, the darkness consuming what was once bright. That ring on your finger is a chain, Ahsoka, not a gift. You're wrong. This ring has freed me from the Jedi's limitations. Look around you, Master. Ryloth is liberated. Thousands are free who would still be enslaved if we'd waited for the Republic's slow, bureaucratic approach. How many more systems could we save if the Order wasn't so afraid of actually using the Force's full potential? The dark side's potential. Plo Koon corrected gently. And yes, it offers quick solutions. Immediate power. But it's a poison, Ahsoka. It corrupts slowly, making each terrible choice seem justified until you can no longer recognize the monster you've become. He's trying to manipulate you through compassion, Sauron warned. Asterisk the Jedi's favorite tactic. Don't let his gentle words hide the fact that he's here to neutralize you, asterisk. I know what I'm doing, Ahsoka insisted. This isn't the mindless rage of the dark side. I'm in complete control. Are you? Plo Koon gestured to the Twi'leks gathering around the plaza's edges. Ahsoka realized with a start that she'd been unconsciously exerting her will on them, drawing them closer to witness this confrontation. Can you even tell any more where your will ends and the rings begins? Ahsoka released her mental grip on the crowd, feeling suddenly uncertain. When had she started doing that? She hadn't consciously decided to manipulate them. The ring augments my intentions, she said, but doubt crept into her voice. It doesn't control me. Then prove it. Remove the ring. Just for a moment. Show me that you can. Ahsoka's hand moved to the ring, and immediately she felt Sauron's presence surge through their connection, not forbidding her, but flooding her with reasons why removing it would be catastrophic. Without the ring, she'd be vulnerable, powerless. The Jedi would take her into custody, imprison her, strip away everything she'd accomplished. The freed people of Ryloth would fall back into chaos. All her work would be undone. I can't, she admitted. Plo Koon's shoulders sagged with sadness. Then you have your answer. That ring owns you, Ahsoka. Whatever entity gave it to you has made you its servant. A willing servant, Ahsoka snapped, anger rising. I chose this. I choose it every day. Do you? Or does the ring simply make you believe that? The question struck at something fundamental. Ahsoka replayed the past weeks in her mind, every decision, every action, every moment of certainty. How much had been her genuine choice, and how much had been Sauron's influence? So subtle she couldn't detect it. Don't let him confuse you, Sauron said urgently. Asterisk this is a philosophical trap. The Jedi love to create doubt, to paralyze action with endless introspection. You know what you want, order, justice, an end to suffering. The ring simply gives you the means to achieve it, asterisk. The Jedi had their chance to guide me, Ahsoka said, pushing past the doubt. They failed. They let me stand trial, let me face execution, then offered me a place back in their order, as if nothing had happened, as if their failure meant nothing. I won't make the same mistake they did, waiting, debating, meditating while people suffer. Plo Koon moved closer, close enough that she could see her reflection in his mask. I failed you, Ahsoka. The entire council failed you. We should have believed in you from the start, should have protected you better, should have recognized the injustice being done. I will regret that failure for the rest of my life. But compounding that failure with this dark path won't heal the wound. It will only make it worse. I'm not trying to heal, Ahsoka said quietly. I'm trying to ensure no one else suffers what I did. That no one else is betrayed by the institutions meant to protect them. By becoming the very thing you fear? By building your own institution based on domination and control. Plo Koon shook his head. Ahsoka, you're repeating the same mistakes the Sith have made for millennia. Power concentrated in one person's hands, no matter how noble their intentions, always corrupts, always leads to tyranny. Then I'll share the power, Ahsoka said, the words coming before she'd fully thought them through. I won't rule alone. I'll create a council of equals, each as powerful as me, each dedicated to the same vision. Yes, Sauron whispered approvingly. Asterisk tell him about the rings. Show him the path forward, asterisk. I'm going to create 8 more like me, Ahsoka continued, conviction building as she spoke. Force wielders bound to a common purpose, free from the Jedi's passive philosophy and the Sith's self-destructive passion. 9 of us, working in concert, could bring true order to this galaxy. Plo Koon's stance shifted subtly, not aggressive, but wary. 9 corrupted Force users, you mean? 9 beings enslaved to whatever entity controls that ring. Ahsoka, listen to yourself. You're describing the creation of an army of dark side warriors. I'm describing the creation of a new order. Ahsoka's voice echoed with power, making the very air vibrate. One that actually accomplishes what the Jedi claim to stand for: peace, justice, protection for those who can't protect themselves. The only difference is that we won't be paralyzed by fear of the dark side. We'll use whatever tools necessary to achieve our goals. The ends justify the means. Plo Koon's voice was heavy with sorrow. That's what every tyrant in history has said, Ahsoka. From the ancient Sith Lords to the worst warlords this galaxy has known. They all believed their vision justified any atrocity. I won't commit atrocities, Ahsoka said. But even as the words left her mouth, she wondered if she could keep that promise. The ring whispered that sometimes harsh measures were necessary, that a few must suffer for the good of many, that true justice required hard choices. You already have, Plo Koon said quietly. The Neimoidian overseer at the processing center. His mind is broken, Ahsoka. He can't remember his own name. The Separatist commanders who fled Ryloth are reporting nightmares, so severe they can't sleep. You violated the sanctity of sentient minds, bent wills that should be free. That's not justice. That's domination. Ahsoka felt a stab of something that might have been guilt, but the ring smoothed it away. They were oppressors, slavers. They deserved. No one deserves to have their mind destroyed, Ahsoka. Not even the worst criminals. That's a line the Jedi never cross, no matter the provocation. It's one of the foundations of our code. Your code failed me. The words exploded from Ahsoka, carrying with them weeks of suppressed rage and pain. Your code let me rot in a cell. Your code values perfect philosophy over actual results. I'm done with codes that sound noble, but accomplish nothing. Power radiated from her, a wave of force energy that sent loose debris skittering across the plaza. The Twi'leks backed away, fear mixing with their awe. Plo Koon stood firm, weathering the storm of her anger. Then you've truly fallen, he said, and there was finality in his tone. I came here hoping to save you, little Sokka, to remind you of who you were, who you could still be. But I see now that the ring has taken too much. There's not enough of the real you left to reach. He turned to leave, and Ahsoka felt panic surge through her. If Plo Koon left believing she was irredeemable, he'd convince the council. They'd send their best warriors. Master Yoda himself might come. She wasn't ready for that level of confrontation. Wait, she called out. Master Plo, wait. He paused, looking back at her. I'm not your enemy, Ahsoka said, forcing calm into her voice. I don't want to fight the Jedi. I just want to be left alone to do what must be done. Can't the council accept that? Can't we coexist? As long as you wear that ring and spread its corruption, we cannot coexist. You represent everything the Jedi Order stands against. Plo Koon's voice softened slightly. But Ahsoka, if you ever find the strength to remove that ring, to break free from whatever has enslaved you, the Order will welcome you back. I will personally vouch for you before the council. You will always have a place among us, if you choose to reclaim it. He walked away without waiting for a response, returning to his ship. Ahsoka watched him go, feeling something crack deep inside her, something the ring couldn't quite seal over. He's wrong, Sauron said firmly. Asterisk, the Jedi would never truly accept you back. They'd always see you as tainted, compromised, dangerous. He offers false hope to manipulate you, asterisk. I know, Ahsoka said, but she wasn't entirely sure she believed it. As Plo Koon's ship lifted off and disappeared into hyperspace, Ahsoka looked at the ring on her finger and wondered, truly wondered for the first time since accepting it, whether she'd made a terrible mistake. Then the doubt faded, as it always did, and she turned back to her war room. There was still work to be done. 8 more rings to forge. 8 more Nazgûl to create. The galaxy would be saved, whether it wanted to be or not. The choice came sooner than Ahsoka expected. 3 weeks after Plo Koon's departure, Ahsoka received intelligence that changed everything. A Republic transport carrying high-value prisoners had been intercepted by Separatist forces near the Bogdan system. Among the prisoners, Barriss Offee, being transferred to a secure facility after her confession to bombing the Jedi Temple. "This is Providence," Sauron said, his excitement palpable through their bond. Asterisk your former friend, already disillusioned with the Jedi, already willing to use violence for her beliefs. She would be an ideal candidate for the second ring. Asterisk. Ahsoka stared at the intelligence report, conflict warring within her. Barriss had betrayed her, had framed her for murder, had destroyed their friendship in pursuit of a twisted vision of justice. But Barriss had also been right about some things. The Jedi had become soldiers, the Order had lost its way, the war was corrupting everything it touched. "She tried to kill me," Ahsoka said quietly. Asterisk, and the Jedi tried to execute you. Yet here you stand, stronger for having survived. Barriss acted out of desperation and poor judgment. With the ring's guidance, her passion could be channeled productively. Together, you could accomplish what she failed to achieve alone. Real change, not symbolic violence. Asterisk. The logic was sound, but something in Ahsoka resisted. Recruiting Barriss would mean forgiving the unforgivable. It would mean trusting someone who'd proven herself untrustworthy. But then again, hadn't Ahsoka herself become something the Jedi would consider untrustworthy? Hadn't she crossed lines she once thought inviolable? "Where is she now?" Ahsoka asked. Asterisk, according to The Intercept, the Separatists are holding the prisoners on a cruiser in the Bogdan asteroid field. Dooku likely plans to execute the Jedi prisoners as propaganda, or perhaps turn them to his cause. "We must act quickly." Asterisk. Ahsoka stood, decision crystallizing. "Prepare the second ring. I'll retrieve her." Asterisk, it's not ready yet. "Forging takes time." Asterisk. "Then start now and work faster. I'm not leaving Barriss in Separatist hands while we debate timelines." She felt Sauron's approval despite his cautionary words. Asterisk, as you command. "But Ahsoka, be careful. This is the first time you'll be operating deep in hostile territory. If Dooku anticipated your involvement, asterisk, then I'll deal with Dooku." Again, the journey to Bogdan was uneventful. Ahsoka's ship, cloaked by the ring's power, slipped past Separatist patrols like a shadow through light. The asteroid field provided excellent cover, and her enhanced force senses guided her through the tumbling rocks with ease that would have made even Anakin envious. The Separatist cruiser hung in space like a predator, a Providence-class destroyer bristling with weapons. Ahsoka extended her senses, searching for Barriss among the thousands of life signs aboard. There, in the detention level, surrounded by guards and battle droids. Weak, frightened, but still alive. Ahsoka docked her ship in the cruiser's hangar bay, the ring warping perception fields to make the docking clamps register her vessel as an authorized shuttle. She walked down the ramp into a bay full of vulture droids and commando droids, none of which registered her presence. The invisibility wouldn't last. Such tricks required constant concentration, but it would get her to the detention level. She moved through the cruiser's corridors like a ghost, her shadow armor muffling her footsteps, the ring clouding the minds of anyone who might have noticed her. She passed officers discussing tactical deployments, technicians repairing damaged systems, even a pair of Magna Guards standing sentry outside what was clearly a command center. The detention level was more heavily guarded. Super battle droids stood at every intersection, their sensors constantly sweeping for threats. Ahsoka couldn't maintain the invisibility illusion against so many automated systems simultaneously, so she stopped hiding. The first super battle droid detected her and raised its wrist rockets. Ahsoka gestured with her ringed hand, and the droid crumpled inward as if crushed by an invisible fist. Its companions opened fire, filling the corridor with blaster bolts. Ahsoka walked through the storm of energy, each bolt either deflected by her shadow armor or absorbed harmlessly. She raised both hands, and tendrils of darkness erupted from her palms, lashing out like living things. They wrapped around droids, crushing them, tearing them apart, reducing them to scrap metal. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Ahsoka felt the crew scrambling to respond, but she was already at the detention cells. A blast door sealed the corridor ahead, reinforced durasteel 3 feet thick. No problem. She placed her ringed hand against the door and channeled power through it. The metal began to glow, then melt, then simply disintegrate as the ring's otherworldly energy unraveled its molecular bonds. Beyond the door, prisoners in individual cells stared in shock. Ahsoka scanned the cells with her force sense and found Barriss in the third one on the left. She walked past Jedi Knights and Republic officers, ignoring their pleas for rescue, focused entirely on her target. Barriss looked terrible. Her face was bruised, her robes torn and stained. But when she looked up and saw Ahsoka, her eyes widened with recognition and something else. Hope? Fear? Both. Ahsoka. Her voice was hoarse. How, what are you doing here? Ahsoka melted through the cell's ray shield with a gesture. Saving you. Or recruiting you. I haven't decided which yet. She stepped into the cell, and Barriss scrambled back against the wall. Stay away from me. I can feel it. You're using the dark side. You've fallen. Fallen? No. I've risen. Ahsoka extended her ringed hand. I've found power beyond the Jedi's understanding, beyond their limitations. And I'm offering you the same opportunity. Barriss stared at the ring, at the dark energy pulsing within it. What is that thing? A gift. A tool. A path to actually achieving what you tried to accomplish with your bombs. Reforming a broken system, ending a corrupt war, bringing real justice to the galaxy. By corrupting myself? By embracing darkness? Barriss shook her head. I made terrible mistakes, Ahsoka. I hurt innocent people, betrayed you, betrayed everything I believed in. I deserve my punishment, but I won't compound those mistakes by becoming a monster. She's refusing, Sauron observed. Asterisk, this is disappointing, but not unexpected. Force compliance, asterisk. No, Ahsoka said aloud, then realized she was responding to Sauron rather than Barriss. She forced her attention back to her former friend. Barriss, listen to me. The Jedi will execute you or imprison you for life. The Separatists will do worse. I'm offering you a third option, power to actually make a difference, to fix what's broken. At what cost? Barriss stood, meeting Ahsoka's eyes despite her fear. Look at yourself. Your skin is pale as death. Your eyes glow with unnatural light. You radiate dark side energy, like a bonfire. Whatever that ring promised you, it's clearly consuming you from the inside. It's transforming me into something greater. It's killing who you were. Barriss's voice cracked with emotion. The Ahsoka I knew would never have walked past imprisoned Jedi without freeing them. Would never have spoken of domination and control like it was justice. That ring is destroying you, and you can't even see it. The words hit harder than Ahsoka expected. She looked back at the corridor, at the cells she'd passed without a second thought. Fellow Jedi, people she'd trained alongside, fought beside. She'd abandoned them because they weren't part of her mission. When had she become so cold? Focus, Sauron commanded. Asterisk, the girl is manipulating you through sentiment. Either recruit her or leave her. We don't have time for this debate, asterisk. Footsteps echoed through the corridor. Heavy mechanical. Magna Guards, probably, or worse. Ahsoka needed to make a decision. Come with me, she said to Barriss, extending her hand. Not to accept the ring, not yet. Just to escape. We can argue philosophy somewhere that isn't a separatist detention cell. Barriss hesitated, clearly weighing her options. Finally, she took Ahsoka's hand. I'll come. But only because death by separatist torture isn't how I want to end this. I won't join whatever dark crusade you're building. We'll see. Ahsoka led Barriss back through the corridor. The other prisoners called out, begging for rescue. Ahsoka felt their desperation through the Force, felt their hope transforming into despair as she passed by. She should stop, should free them. It would take mere seconds. But Sauron's voice was insistent. Asterisk, time is critical. The Separatists are sealing off this section. We must leave now, asterisk. Ahsoka kept walking, pulling Barriss along, trying to ignore the weight of the choice she was making, trying to convince herself that focusing on her mission, on the greater goal, justified abandoning people in immediate danger. Trying and failing, they burst back into the main corridor to find a squad of Magna Guards waiting, their electrostaffs crackling with energy. Behind them, battle droids formed a wall of blasters and rockets. "Stop," the lead Magna Guard intoned in its flat mechanical voice. "Surrender or be destroyed." Ahsoka raised her ringed hand, preparing to unleash devastation. But before she could strike, the entire ship shuddered violently. Lights flickered. Artificial gravity wavered. Through the Force, Ahsoka felt it, a massive concentration of power approaching. Not Jedi. Not Sith. Something else entirely. The wall behind the droids exploded inward, and a figure stepped through the breach. Anakin Skywalker stood wreathed in blue lightning, his lightsaber blazing in his hand, his eyes burning with fury. Behind him, a full strike team of clones poured through the opening, weapons ready. "Ahsoka." Anakin's voice was thunder. "Step away from Barriss. Now." Ahsoka's heart clenched at the sight of him. Her master. Her friend. The man who taught her everything she knew about being a Jedi. And now, standing between her and her goals. "This is the moment," Sauron whispered. Choose. Your past or your future. Sentiment or purpose. The failed master or the vision that will save this galaxy. Anakin advanced, cutting down battle droids with casual precision. "Snips, please. Whatever that thing on your finger is telling you, it's lying. I can feel it corrupting you, twisting you into something you're not. Let me help you. We can fix this together." Barriss pulled her hand free from Ahsoka's grasp, stumbling toward Anakin. "She's too far gone, Master Skywalker. The darkness has claimed her." "No," Anakin said firmly, never taking his eyes off Ahsoka. "No one is too far gone. Not while they're still breathing." Ahsoka looked at Anakin, at Barriss, at the clones surrounding them. She could fight. The ring would give her the power to destroy them all, even Anakin, if she truly committed. But the cost. For the first time since accepting Sauron's gift, Ahsoka felt genuine doubt pierce through the ring's certainty. "Anakin," she said quietly, "I can't come back. Not to the Order. Not to that life. There's too much I need to do, and the Jedi way won't let me do it." "Then we'll find another way," Anakin said, and his desperation was palpable. "There's always another way, Snips. Please, don't make me fight you." "He's weak," Sauron hissed. Strike now while he's conflicted. Eliminate the threat, But Ahsoka couldn't. Not Anakin. Not the man who'd believed in her when no one else would. She made her choice. With a gesture, she collapsed the corridor behind them, sealing Anakin and his team on the other side of tons of wreckage. It would take them minutes to cut through, time enough to escape. "I'm sorry, Master," Ahsoka whispered, knowing he couldn't hear her. "But this is the only way." She turned and ran, leaving Barriss with Anakin, leaving her former life behind once more. The ring pulsed with approval, and Ahsoka tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice. But deep down, beneath the corruption and the power and Sauron's whispered reassurances, a small part of her, the part that was still truly Ahsoka Tano, began to scream. The escape from the Separatist cruiser left Ahsoka physically unscathed but mentally fractured. She piloted her ship through the Bogdan asteroid field on autopilot, her mind replaying the moment she'd sealed the corridor, trapping Anakin on the other side. She'd abandoned Barriss, ignored imprisoned Jedi, fled from the one person who still believed she could be saved. The ring pulsed steadily on her finger, a constant reminder of the power she wielded and the price she'd paid for it. "You made the correct tactical decision," Sauron said, his presence a cold comfort in her thoughts. Skywalker would have forced a confrontation you weren't prepared for. The mission parameters were clear: extract Afi, or failing that, preserve yourself. You chose wisely, Did I? Ahsoka stared at her reflection in the viewport. The pale skin, the darkened montrals, the eyes that gleamed with unnatural light. "I left people to suffer. Again. Just like I'm leaving systems to burn while I consolidate power on Ryloth. You're building a foundation. Rome wasn't built in a day, as the saying goes in certain human cultures. We need patience, Ahsoka. Strategic patience, asterisk. How much patience? How many people suffer while we prepare? You speak of forging 9 rings, creating 9 Nazgûl, but we don't even have a second candidate now. Barriss refused. Who else is there? Silence from Sauron, which was answer enough. Ahsoka changed course, pointing her ship toward Ryloth. But halfway there, a distress signal crackled through her comm system, automated, desperate, repeating on all frequencies. Under attack, colony ship errant venture, civilian refugees from Onderon, separatist frigates, requesting any Republic forces. Ahsoka's hand hovered over the comm controls. This wasn't her problem. The refugees weren't her responsibility. She needed to return to Ryloth, consolidate her position, plan the next phase of Sauron's grand design. But the distress call continued, and with it came the Force impressions, thousands of lives, including children, huddled in fear as battle droids boarded their ship. Ignore it, Sauron commanded. Asterisk, you cannot save everyone. Focus on the larger objective, asterisk. Ahsoka's hand trembled. The ring pulsed, reinforcing Sauron's directive, trying to push her past the moment of compassion. But something in her, that screaming part buried deep beneath the corruption, refused to be silent anymore. No, she said quietly. What? No. I won't ignore it. Ahsoka altered course toward the distress signal. Those people need help. That's why I accepted your power in the first place. To help people the Jedi couldn't or wouldn't save. Asterisk, this is irrational. The tactical value of rescuing one refugee ship is negligible compared to asterisk. I don't care about tactical value. The words burst from Ahsoka with unexpected force. I care about those people. About doing what's right. Isn't that what you promised me? The power to bring justice. Asterisk, justice requires sacrifice. You cannot save everyone without the infrastructure we're building. One ship of refugees means nothing in the scope of asterisk. It means everything to them. Ahsoka felt Sauron's presence recoil slightly, surprised by her vehemence. For the first time since accepting the ring, she'd contradicted him with genuine conviction rather than token resistance. She emerged from hyperspace to find the errant venture listing badly, its shields failing under sustained fire from 2 separatist frigates. Escape pods were launching, but the frigates were destroying them methodically. No survivors, no witnesses. Rage flooded through Ahsoka, but this time it wasn't the cold, calculated anger the ring encouraged. This was hot, righteous fury that reminded her of who she'd been before Sauron's corruption. She dove her ship toward the nearest frigate, no longer bothering with stealth or tactics. Power gathered around her, channeled through the ring, but directed by her own will. She extended both hands. An invisible force gripped the frigate's hull. Metal screamed. The ship began to crumple like a discarded can, its structure unable to withstand the telekinetic pressure. Battle droids and crew members were sucked into space as the hull breached in dozens of places. Yes, Sauron's voice was exultant. Asterisk, this is the power I gave you. Use it. Destroy them all, asterisk. But Ahsoka wasn't listening anymore. She released the dying frigate and turned her attention to the second one, which was now targeting her ship. She didn't evade. She flew directly into the barrage of turbo-laser fire, her shadow armor absorbing impacts that should have vaporized her vessel. She crashed through the frigate's bridge viewport, stepping out into vacuum without fear. The ring sustained her, creating a bubble of breathable atmosphere, while the bridge crew asphyxiated around her. She walked calmly to the ship's main computer and placed her ringed hand on the console. Dark energy flooded the ship's systems, overriding protocols, seizing control. Within seconds, she commanded the entire vessel. She shut down the weapons, disabled the engines. Then, with a thought, she ejected every battle droid aboard into space while sealing the sections containing organic crew. Let them live. Let them carry word of what she'd done. The errant venture was stabilizing now, its emergency systems kicking in. Ahsoka returned to her ship and docked with the refugee vessel, stepping aboard to find terrified families huddled in corridors. They stared at her, this pale, dark-clad figure radiating power and menace. and many shrank back in fear. "You're safe," Ahsoka said, forcing gentleness into her voice. "The Separatist ships are disabled. I'll escort you to the nearest Republic outpost." An elderly woman stepped forward, her leku marking her as Twi'lek. Are you the one they speak of? The liberator of Ryloth?" Ahsoka hesitated, then nodded. "I am Ahsoka Tano." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "You saved us, just like you saved our homeworld. Thank you. Thank you." Others began to emerge from their hiding places, their fear transforming into gratitude. Children pressed forward, wanting to touch her armor. Adults offered prayers of thanks to the Force for sending her. And Ahsoka felt the ring's influence slip just slightly. These people saw her as a hero, not a monster. They didn't care about her pale skin or glowing eyes. They cared only that she'd saved them when no one else would. "This changes nothing," Sauron said, but there was a defensive edge to his voice. "One heroic act doesn't negate the necessity of our larger plan. Doesn't it prove the plan is wrong?" Ahsoka asked silently. "You told me I couldn't save everyone without your infrastructure. But I just did. Without preparation, without 9 Nazgûl, without any of it. Just me and the choice to help. Asterisk, you used the ring's power to accomplish this rescue. Without it, you would have failed, asterisk. Maybe. But I chose how to use that power. Not you. Me." She felt Sauron's presence grow cold, calculating. Asterisk, you're beginning to resist the ring's influence. This is problematic, asterisk. Is it? You said the ring doesn't enslave, that it aligns our purposes. If I'm resisting, maybe our purposes aren't as aligned as you claimed. Asterisk, you're confused. Emotional. The encounter with Skywalker has destabilized your thinking. Given time, you'll see, asterisk. No. Ahsoka looked at the refugees, at their hope and gratitude, and felt something shift fundamentally inside her. I don't think I will. I think I've been lying to myself, letting the ring convince me that domination equals justice, that the ends justify any means. But looking at these people, they don't need a ruler. They need a protector. There's a difference. Ahsoka, listen to me carefully. Sauron's voice took on an urgent, almost pleading quality. Asterisk, you cannot remove the ring. It's bound to you on a molecular level. Even if you wanted to reject me, you're trapped. The only path forward is to continue what we've started, asterisk. Then I'll use the ring's power my way, not yours. Asterisk, that's not possible. The ring channels my will, my purpose. You cannot, asterisk. Ahsoka focused on the ring, really focused on it for the first time since the transformation. She felt Sauron's presence woven through it. His consciousness merged with hers. But she also felt something else. The core of who she was, buried but not destroyed. The part of her that had walked away from the Jedi Order on principle. The part that had survived betrayal and injustice. The part that still believed in doing the right thing, even when it was hard. That part was stronger than she'd realized. Stronger than Sauron had anticipated. She reached deep into the Force, not the corrupted connection the ring provided, but the original bond she'd forged as a youngling. It was still there, distant, muffled, but real. She grasped it like a lifeline and pulled. Light flooded through her, searing and purifying. The ring fought back, burning her hand, sending waves of agony through her nervous system. Sauron's voice became a roar of denial and rage. Asterisk, no. You cannot do this. I own you. The ring owns you. You cannot, asterisk. I am Ahsoka Tano, she screamed, and power exploded from her. Not dark power, not the ring's corrupted energy, but pure Force energy channeled through will alone. I am not your servant. I am not your weapon. I choose my own path. The ring cracked. It was impossible. Sauron had forged it with power drawn from beyond reality, had bound it to her with sorcery that transcended the Force. It shouldn't have been able to break. But Ahsoka's will, fueled by the Force and the fundamental truth of who she was, proved stronger than Sauron's binding. The ring split along its circumference, and the dark energy within began to leak out. If you destroy the ring, you'll destroy yourself, Sauron warned, his voice panicked now. Asterisk, too much of your life force is bound to it. You'll die, Ahsoka, asterisk. She hesitated, feeling the truth of his words. The ring had sustained her for weeks, had become part of her physiology. Removing it would be like ripping out her own heart. But keeping it would mean becoming Sauron's puppet, would mean losing herself completely. The choice was simple, really. Then I die free, Ahsoka said, and shattered the ring completely. Pain beyond description tore through her. She felt the dark energy that had been sustaining her burn away, felt her enhanced abilities collapse, felt her very life force beginning to hemorrhage. She fell to her knees on the refugee ship's deck, gasping, dying. The refugees screamed. Some ran to help her. A medic pushed through the crowd, trying to assess her condition, but there was nothing conventional medicine could do for what was happening to her. Ahsoka's vision darkened. She felt Sauron's presence fragmenting, his connection to this galaxy severing as the ring's destruction banished him back to whatever realm he'd come from. His final words echoed in her fading consciousness. Asterisk, fool. You had the power to save this galaxy, and you threw it away for sentiment. Now you'll die, and the Jedi will continue to fail, and the Sith will triumph, and everything you could have prevented will come to pass. Was your pride worth that cost? Asterisk. Then he was gone, and Ahsoka was alone with her pain. But as darkness closed in, she felt something else, a familiar presence in the Force, warm and worried, rushing toward her through hyperspace. Anakin. He must have tracked her ship, must have sensed her distress through their bond. He was coming. Too late to save her, probably, but coming nonetheless. Ahsoka smiled despite the pain. At least she would die as herself, not as Sauron's puppet, not as a Nazgûl of the Force. Just Ahsoka Tano, who'd made mistakes, but who'd chosen redemption in the end. The last thing she saw before consciousness fled was the shattered ring on the deck beside her, its dark metal already beginning to corrode and crumble. Then there was only darkness, and the distant sound of her former master calling her name. The tale of Ahsoka Tano's brush with corruption serves as a haunting reminder that even the strongest among us can fall, and that redemption, though costly, is never truly beyond reach. When Ahsoka shattered Sauron's ring, she didn't just break an artifact of dark power. She severed a connection between two universes, closing a door that should never have been opened. Sauron, the Dark Lord of Middle-earth, had sought to establish dominion in a new realm, to forge his Nazgûl anew among Force wielders who would bend the galaxy to his will. But he had underestimated the one quality that defined Ahsoka Tano above all others, her unshakable sense of self. Anakin Skywalker arrived at the refugee ship to find his former Padawan on the brink of death, her life force draining away with the ring's destruction. Using every healing technique the Jedi knew, combined with the raw power of his connection to the Force, he managed to stabilize her, barely. The corruption had run deep, and though the ring was destroyed, its mark remained. Ahsoka would carry the scars of her transformation for the rest of her life. The pale veins that spiderwebbed across her skin in moments of stress, the occasional flash of unnatural light in her eyes, and the haunting memories of what she'd nearly become. The Jedi Council faced an unprecedented dilemma. Ahsoka had fallen to darkness, or rather, to something beyond even the dark side. Yet she had also rejected it through sheer force of will. Master Yoda argued for compassion, recognizing that her journey into corruption had been born from the Council's own failure. Master Windu advocated for caution, noting that she remained dangerous despite her redemption. In the end, they offered her a choice: return to the Order as a knight, acknowledging both her fall and her rise, or continue her own path with the Council's reluctant blessing. Ahsoka chose the latter. She could not return to an institution that had failed her so profoundly, even though she no longer blamed them with the bitter rage Sauron had cultivated. Instead, she dedicated herself to a new purpose, hunting down the remaining fragments of Sauron's influence in the galaxy. The ring's destruction hadn't completely severed the Dark Lord's connection to this reality. Whispers remained, shadows that sought new hosts, artifacts corrupted by his otherworldly power. On Ryloth, the people she had liberated slowly recovered from her mental manipulation. Some remembered her as a savior, others as a warning of what happens when power corrupts even the noblest intentions. The provisional government she'd established continued to function, but now guided by the Twi'lek's own democratic will rather than her subtle domination. As for Sauron, his essence retreated back through the void between realities, weakened but not destroyed. In the depths of his defeated consciousness, he filed away everything he'd learned about this galaxy and its force. One day, perhaps, he would try again, but he would remember the former Jedi who had broken his unbreakable ring. And he would remember that in this galaxy, hope and free will could triumph over even the darkest dominion.